Well, good evening. Happy Valentine's. And this is quite the impromptu video. I just decided to go live because something came up tonight. I've been sitting with a lot of emotions. I don't know if anybody else is going through any funky energies. Tonight was my Beyond Addiction call follow-up, which tends to happen every Wednesday evening. And I went to my goddesses earlier today, and it's just a lot of heavy energies. And I'm going to tell you, Chiron is the wounded healer. So Chiron comes in and kind of makes your wounds rather, let's say, open. They reopen. So they reopen because, just like anything, if they don't come to surface, when are you going to attend to those wounds that are still unhealed? And so what ended up coming through with this Chiron wounded healer energy that I'm feeling into, and I'm sure that many of you can relate to this part, and I'm speaking mostly because women will get this. It's Valentine's Day week, month, and I've always had a little bit of a little sore rub around Valentine's Day. I tend to be single most of the time, or if I'm in relationships, usually some ironic feat of the man is that he just gets mad or some stupid breakup or something stupid. I don't know how to explain it, and there could be this whole aversion to being truly vulnerable and available with the whole Valentine's, like there's also the obligatory, we're supposed to exchange gifts and things like that. But if you don't have somebody in your life that's doing that already, then you might have a sign that it's not a healthy relationship. But Valentine's Day brings up a lot of weird stuff, and I'm saying thank you very much, Robin. I appreciate it. Ciao, Cindy. Ciao, Pepe. A lot of different things are coming up, and my wounds coming to surface have made me rather tender, and I think I've shared enough out there for those of you who've watched me before. I have a very strong will. I have a very independent nature. I can take care of myself. And with relationships, I've been the first to run. I've been the type of person to reject instead of being rejected. But that's because I don't handle rejection well. So that's a natural coping mechanism that many of us have learned, that we don't want to be rejected, so it's easier to reject or to run, so we kind of get that first move. It's an ego thing. It's a control thing. Nobody wants to be the one left, standing, holding the bag, or left hanging or abandoned at all, let alone rejected. Nobody wants to be rejected. But because of these wounds, and I have been trying to be very open and very vulnerable and courageous and actually speaking my truth and speaking my worth. And I know you probably think that's a little bit like, what is she talking about? I speak about a lot of things that I've learned, and I'm still working on integrating a lot of things that I share. I'm still human. I bleed the same as everyone else. I cry the same as everyone else. I smile, I laugh, I play, I get serious, I get angry. Listen, I don't ever want to be idolized. I just want to inspire others to find their joy when they can, the best, to be in it as long as you can. I am mostly in joy. I admit that. But when I get caught up and dragged down into that other realm, that anger, it takes a lot for me to get angry. And I honestly have had a hard time with letting go of things. If something really pisses me off, I'm a Leo, y'all, and I'm a tiger to boot. I've got a lot of fire. I've got a lot of stuff that still comes to surface. That really, like I said, when those wounds are being brought to surface, it's like, go ahead, put some salt in them. It's like the lion with the thorn in its paw. It's like you just hit my Achilles tendon or my Achilles heel. It's like, the reality is, I'm already tender enough. And so if I open myself and I open myself to courage and vulnerability, and I get rejected or shut down, then I close up even more. I get cold. And I mean, it's not easy if I go into cold mode, it's hard for me to come out of it. Part of it, yeah, it's a strong ego, it's a strong will, but that's my protective coping mechanism. That's my survival technique. That's how I protect myself, is that I shut down and become cold because I don't want to get hurt anymore. Because I know what it's like to be rejected and to have your feelings not honored or respected or just accepted. How about this? Just see me as I am and accept me as I am. You say you get me? How about accept me? Because if you get me and you accept me and you love me unconditionally, then you're not going to reject my feelings. You're going to accept them as they are. You're going to appreciate that if I share that with you, that I trust you enough to open myself to the hurt that could possibly come through. But if you hurt me, then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to shut down, and I'm not trying to. It's just, it happens. And I dislike it when it happens, because then it's hard for me to come out of it. Because there's a whole humbling. Because if I'm hurt, do you think I want to turn around and come crying back to the person who hurt me? Made me feel bad for feeling to begin with? Have any of you out there had that happen? You turn around and you're in pain, and you reveal it to someone you think cares about you, loves you, says they want the best for you. I love you. I didn't mean to hurt you, so you shouldn't be upset. Don't get mad at me. I didn't mean to hurt you. Honey, I'm sorry. If you hurt my feelings, I can't turn around and tell you it's okay. I can forgive you. But how about just acknowledge them and accept them instead of trying to shut the person down, shut me down, and then make me feel bad for feeling? Hello? How old school is that? That is so masculine, dominance. We don't want you to feel. In fact, this came up because I started reflecting upon my mom's generation. My mom and my dad's generation, where nothing, you didn't talk about the dirt, the bad stuff. That's swept under the rug. You're not supposed to admit that you have feelings. In fact, you're never supposed to get hurt. You're supposed to be all smiles, especially as women, right? The generation of everything's hunky-dory and it's all perfect. The Stepford wives, which is a bunch of bullshit. Which is why there's a whole feminine rising right now, and there's so much anger behind so many women. Because we haven't been allowed, honored, accepted, or even seen that we're human. We're supposed to be superhuman. And while you're at it, by the way, and you're doing everything that you're doing, don't take time for yourself. Don't honor your feelings. And then when it's finally, what's her problem? She's so sensitive. God forbid that she has feelings. Because who wants a sensitive woman? Hello, you don't want an insensitive one. And that's a compliment if someone tells you you're sensitive. Because if they tell you you're insensitive, that means you're not giving a shit about anything. But at least if you're sensitive, it shows you care. And if you get angry, anger is actually very high on, very low on the perceived, what is it? The kinesiology. It's the level of energy, the vibrational level. So all this stuff that's coming up, and I'm feeling seriously, salt is being thrown on my wounds and rub. And I started reflecting upon relationships in the past and how I had boyfriends that I'd try to reveal and be close to, and I'd share some things about myself with them, and I'd be told, don't you have a girlfriend you can share that with? I even had one guy turn around and shut me down and go, I don't really want to hear this. Right? And I'm like, talk about serious rejection in your face. I don't want to hear this. Could you go talk to somebody else? Don't you have somebody else you can talk to? And I'm like, really? And this is supposed to be an intimate relationship. And I was listening to something the other day that reminded me, other than the fact that we know, what is the word relationship about? To relate. Hello, you see me, I see you. And I always talk about intimacy, right? Into me, I see. But in relationship with another person, it's in me, see. See, we're all reflecting mirrors to each other. And if one person is hurt, and you would think that the other person claims to care, you would think they'd at least honor and sit with you and go, you know what? I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Can I just sit with you and understand what happened and what it is? Because ultimately we don't want to turn around and be shut down. We want to be accepted and honored in our vulnerability to even reveal that we're hurt. We want to be seen, be heard, be felt. Because that's a human condition, is to connect, not to turn around and be shut down and disconnected, right? Could someone please share this in the group? I'd appreciate it. So I have a true confession to make, because as I'm sitting here thinking about Valentine's Day, and I don't really have a trigger around it. It's just sometimes, when I was single, I'd be like, I gotta do something for myself. I went and bought white roses because Whole Foods has a Prime deal on them. They're like $19.99 for 2 dozen. So this particular confession, I'm actually going to share something I did that I'm not proud of. And you know what? I'm going to talk about a story nobody's ever heard, because I don't think I've ever told this story to anybody that I can recall. So when I was in the Air Force, and I did some pretty crazy stuff in my time. I'm not perfect. I told you I'm human. I had met this man in Korea when I was stationed in Korea. And his name was Tom. And isn't that a funny irony, right? And I really, really connected with him. And it'll bring me to tears to tell the story, because we met and we just hit it off. We really clicked. He danced, we danced, we had so much fun. We line danced, we swing danced. I mean, we had this really cool rhythm. And I was always into being with the dancer. I mean, my high school sweetheart was a dancer. I was always a dancer. And anyway, we connected so deep, but because, I hate to admit it, but in many cases when you go to remote one-year tours and all that, he was married. And unfortunately was unhappily married, and his wife was cheating on him at the same time as well. And I know he didn't feel good about the cheating, but we both felt good about being with each other. But the hard part is that we couldn't walk around holding hands. We couldn't, because it was a form of PDA, and this man's supposed to be married, and everybody knows. I mean, a lot of people are married in Korea, and they act like they're not anyway. At least when I was in the military, there's a lot of people who are married who, what goes TDY stays TDY. What goes remote stays remote. And I didn't believe in that kind of stuff. That's why I never got married. I saw so much infidelity. Don't get me wrong, I had plenty of opportunities. Of course, by the way, none of them were appealing enough for me to take either. So we really connected. And he and I, we had some difficulties as far as me trying to be close to him. He had some traumas, but I tried to share some things with him, and it scared him. When you're in your 20s and you're insecure and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, fast forward after he left, he went back to the States to where his wife was. They tried, they have 2 children, so, that was the case, that it was about the children. And they ended up getting divorced. And I stayed in contact with them. Now, meanwhile, I have a couple little things that happened in the midst of all of when we were seeing each other in Korea. It was about 6 months of my tour and 6 months of his tour, because he had been there 6 months prior. So we were together probably about 6 months dating together. And I upset him because I had also a little bit of a destructive mode then too, where he would distance himself and get upset. One night I got really drunk and some guy kissed me, and he assumed I wanted to be with this man. So he left me alone. And I got really upset with him because I was really too drunk and nothing should have happened. And this was one of those times when you do something, and ladies, I'm sure I'm not the only one, where you're drunk and things happen and you wake up the next morning going, what the hell just happened? And in that case, I was mortified, number one, because I didn't want that to happen. And number two, I was really upset that he didn't step in when he knew and saw what was happening. Do you know that he told me later, he got really upset. He said he took this long hike, and he came back when we finally had a talk. I think he did some weird shave to his head too, like a lot shorter than normal, and because he was so upset with the situation, and he was really jealous and upset because he really cared for me. And we all do that, especially at young ages. And he turned around and he said, I thought you wanted it. He said, I had interrupted another time with some other girl where I thought the girl was being taken advantage of. And in that case, she probably did want to be with him. Whatever. But I looked at him, I said, what made you think I wanted to be with him if I was with you? And he says, well, you were kissing. I said, I was drunk. I said, I wish you would have done something. Do you think I wanted that? And so I'm not going to say it was any form of forced situation. I was just totally inebriated. And back in those days, I was drinking a lot. In Korea, there's all sorts of booze. And I'm not that big. I'm not that heavy. I'm tiny. It didn't take much for me to get drunk. But I still drank a lot more than I should. It makes me kind of nauseous just thinking about those times, because it's like I could feel it in my body. So this situation kind of revealed how much we cared about each other. And then we stayed in touch after he left, and he went back to the States, and like I said, he got divorced, and I went to go see him. And I missed him, and I wanted to be with him, and then he got orders to go to the UK, and I was stationed in DC. And I bought a house, and I got an opportunity to get my first TDY. It was my second enlistment in the Air Force. And wouldn't you know, I was able to get a TDY to where he was. And I was so excited and nervous at the same time, because I didn't know if he'd have another girlfriend, and we were communicating. Yeah. And here I was excited about possibly seeing him again. And so I get these TDY orders, and I go to the UK, and I'm excited for a couple of reasons. My cousin was telling me all about all the fun stuff I do and get to see, and you got to do this, you got to go to this place called the church. And I got there, and I got to see him, and we were both nervous, but we were so excited. And the chemistry and everything was still there, and it was really good to see him. And it was even better because he was no longer married, and he was single. And it was really cool. So here I am, TDY. Let's see, November. It was from November to April. January, February, March, April. So it was like a 6-month TDY. And it was a NATO TDY. I was so excited. It was my first time over there. He was working nearby to where I was working. and we got to spend a lot of time together. And I made a lot of friends in the shop that I was working in, which was actually pretty cool. But Valentine's Day comes around, and I'll be straight up. I can't say I gave him an ultimatum. All I did was just kind of put it out there like, I really still care about you. And he said something that really hurt me. And you know, it's really hard when someone says things to you that they can't take back. Even if you feel in your heart they don't mean it. And I know my intuition, and I trusted and knew that he said something he didn't mean, but it was difficult to hear it. The ultimate thing that he said was, I'll never get married again. I'm never going to marry you. And I was like total rejection. We have this chemistry, we get along, and now you're rejecting me. I'm like totally baffled and confused. I cried. I cried so hard, and I cried all night long. I called my mom, and I shared with her, Mom, this is what's happening, and I'm really upset. And I didn't know how to handle it. But my next step, and I'm going to tell you, many a woman has done this. When someone rejects you, and any man who's been in this situation either, will know, he can admit that, well, it's real easy to pick up a woman who's in grief or, in a vulnerable state, because it shows. There was a guy in my shop that had just come back from a TDY that I hadn't met, who I also had chemistry with. And he had no problem telling me he was interested in me. In fact, he got me with the super dose of humor. And there was, you know what? He was giving me attention. He wasn't rejecting me. In fact, he was accepting me. And it felt good. But the problem with the situation with Tom was that he wasn't willing to fight for me. He wasn't willing to fight for me when we were in Korea. One of our beautiful rad stars, is it Vicky Messing? She had mentioned, she mentioned today in one of her posts about her man not wanting to say anything. She said she had an apartment lined up. And the reason I think this memory popped in was because it reminded me of that. It reminded me of men in my life who weren't willing to fight for me. They'd either fight with me, fight against me, but they weren't willing to step up and fight for me, to support me, and to really show that they cared and really be there when they claimed they would, right? So in the case of Tom, I was getting attention somewhere else. The first time he wasn't willing to step in when the situation happened in Korea. And now he's telling me he's not wanting to get real serious with me because he doesn't want to get married and he doesn't want to marry me. I mean, I'm like shaking my head going, what? We're having all this fun. I might get an opportunity to come back. Maybe we could be together. But that wasn't, he was rejecting me before anything, and I wasn't asking for marriage. And it was all around Valentine's Day. So, again, I went back out with this group of people that I worked with, who were so much fun and so accepting and inviting. And wouldn't you know, this person in my shop was giving me enough attention that I'm like, well, okay, time to move on, because you know what? I'm already being rejected, so why should I stick around? How many of y'all out there have done this? And I'm not a person to jump from one relationship to the next. That's just not my style. I'm quite happy single, but I like being with my friends. And do you know, I didn't say anything, because then all of a sudden, wouldn't you know that he comes back on Valentine's Day, and he's like, and I remember he showed up at my door. We were all going to the church. Now, if you've ever been to London, the church is basically Originally it started in a church, but it's basically a Sunday affair where everybody goes to this big warehouse. People come from all over the world, and it's a big drink fest. It's really crazy. And it starts around like noon or something like that. People line up, they sell you drink tickets, so you get ice and the drinks. You go in, there's a huge stage, there's comedians, there's strippers, and male and female. At the very end, you get up there, they have white wet t-shirt contests. I did that too. Of course I did, right? And this group of friends from work was the group we're all going with. Well, Tom was coming too. And we all go to the church. And I'm kind of still flirting with Steve in front of Tom. But I don't think I was that obvious. I was with Tom. It was really awkward, but at the same time, I decided I was going to have fun. And Tom had given me, I think I had even gotten Tom a Valentine's Day card. And I apparently didn't sign it because he made a point of pointing that out to me later. While we were at the church, I ended up getting drunk. Tom was kind of ignoring me. Steve was giving me attention. And I don't know why this strange dynamic, but apparently Tom had this whole thing planned with me where he was going to take me to one of the parks in London to a concert, like a, what do you call it? What's that called? Oh, goodness. Classical music concert. That's what it was. And for whatever reason, I didn't end up, however this transpired, Steve and I ended up kissing in front of Tom, and he ended up disappearing and leaving. And yeah, I'm sure part of it was because I was drinking. But, what it really boiled down for is I wasn't trying to hurt him, but I was in a hurt state. And that was at that time. And this really goes back to a lot of pains and hurts when I was younger. And, just when you're rejected, you go looking for somebody, something to comfort or soothe you. And this is where, whether it's alcohol, drinking, anything, sex, gambling, shopping, anything can be your addiction. It's soothing you. So I felt hurt from him, and I just felt better being in the comfort of people giving me this attention, affection. So he disappeared, and I later found out, and I was really embarrassed because of my behavior, number one. You can't take back when you're drinking and doing crazy stuff like that. Steve and I dated for a while after that, too. I later spoke to Tom, and I was really, really, and a part of me was angry with him because, again, he sat there watching, and he didn't speak up. So the whole time, the first time and the second time, I learned a lesson that he wasn't willing to fight for me, that I wasn't important enough, that he didn't want to be with me enough. But at the same time, I know the other part of this was maybe he didn't feel worthy of being with me. Maybe he feared rejection. Maybe, I can come up with tons of stories. But for me, he wasn't showing me that he cared enough to want to be with me to step in. And so that was my confession for tonight. Was just this sadness in my heart that I had this relationship. And I still am sad that happened. And over the years, we literally lost touch, and I didn't hear from him for years until I came back to the United States. Somehow one of my girlfriends got in touch with him, and we were communicating through email. He had been in Naples, Italy when I was in Naples, Italy, and I think he was even here in Tampa when I was here in Florida. It's crazy how you can be just near each other and never reconnect. But go figure, he remarried. Wasn't me, obviously, but I always just wanted him to be happy. And I know he had a hard, rough childhood as well. And not easy. Definitely not easy. He retired out of California. I know he was doing some, well, anyway, I'm not going to talk about his personal stuff, but we had connected, and I felt like it was really sweet because we were able to communicate, and I apologized. We're definitely in better places now. But I believe he married a woman from the UK, and they were, as far as I knew, they were happy. Beyond that, I didn't really get much. And when he retired from the Air Force, I could no longer get in touch with him because that was the only email I had. So we lost touch. And to get in touch with somebody with a very common name, I'm not going to say the rest of his name, impossible. Unless he reached out for me, I've got like the easiest unique name. There is no other Lana Ann Labonte. And let alone, that's my given name, not a married name. So, good evening, Rose. So, I just wanted to share that, and just, sometimes we have some guilt that kind of sets with us, and I guess it's not really the guilt. It's the sadness that not everybody is willing to step up and be vulnerable enough or courageous enough to truly love somebody. A lot of times it's out of fear of rejection. A lot of times it's easier to say you love them than to actually act and be in love with them. To love them as they are, because love is unconditional. Love finds no argument. It will find everything right. It will never find anything wrong. And I was very hurt back in those days. And I used to do some hurtful things, more to myself than I ever did it to anybody else. But all I was ever looking for was somebody who wanted to connect and really feel my feelings with me, and to truly see me and accept me as I was, as opposed to try to fix me and control me and mold me into what they wanted me to be. And I had plenty of those over the course of my life. And love is not meant to be difficult. Because, it's always heart-centered. The head's what gets you in trouble. All you have to do is tap into the true feeling, the essence. Hi, beautiful Carol Lee. Hi, Emily. Hi, Katrina. I love you all so very much, and I hope you do have a beautiful beautiful Valentine's Day. Celebrate you, be you. And the reason I had to do this video, though, was because this memory popped in and I had forgotten about it. And I could tell you, and I haven't talked about this person, I still have, like, true compassion and understanding and acceptance that he wasn't in a place that I needed him to be. I was blessed to have him in my life because he was wonderful. But I also know that he had a lot of fear and he had been hurt. And they say, once again, we attract where we're at. And given the fact that he had a history of being cheated on, I'm not saying that, I was perfect. But the fear of something can also be what you attract more than anything else. Oh, honey, Greta, please share in the group. Let us know what's going on with you. What's going on in your personal life that I opened your eyes up to. And it's really hard, I have to say, is when you really, really want somebody to be there with you, for you, as you are, or as you need them to be. It is difficult when they can't be. But sometimes you got to accept that the right one will be. The right one always shows up in our lives. Even if you think it's impossible, it really is possible. And each person reminds us that if they can't show up, doesn't mean the next one can't. It's just, I remind myself when I talk about it, when I think about it, that if a relationship didn't work out and the person wasn't unable to show up for me where I needed them to, now I know what it is I need. And because of that, I'm grateful. Back then, I was so heartbroken. I loved him so much. It broke my heart to be rejected and told, not only that you're never going to get married, but I'm not going to marry you. It was like, that hit me in my stomach. It hit me in my heart. And I cried on the phone with my mom so hard. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I had another situation where somebody I dated for years on and off, I once said to him, where's this going? And I got oh, you know how I am, I'm more about my work. And I was like, oh, thanks. I was so pissed off. Because it's an irony, isn't it? That men who feel like you're trying to control them or try to get an answer from them, or they think you're giving them an ultimatum, they're going to reject you. You know why? Because they want to be the ones to make the choice. And it's total ego. Because how many men, after some woman has wanted to be the one, go off and marry the next one? Because they're not vulnerable enough and able to step into admitting, you know what, I really do love you. But I can also recognize my ego is trying to tell me, she's not going to control me. She's not going to tell me we're going to get married. No, that's my job. And that's part of that whole toxic masculinity. It's part of that whole thing that's going on right now where there's a lot of angry women right now, but then there's a lot of angry men. And we're both accountable. We both have to own our stuff. You know, as women, we need to be able to hold a man, but we also need a man who's willing to be held and to also show up to do the work. See, you got to remember, women, we have a lot of power. We got a lot of energy. There's a reason we took on these roles as women, even if we don't want to own it. Being a woman is powerful in this day and age. Your thoughts, dear, I know my thoughts. And I had this conversation with my girlfriends today. My one girlfriend said, you know, if I go out and do any energy work, if I do any type of workshop or something that raises my vibration, my husband can't handle it. He totally he crumbles, she said. He can't handle when we were talking about, you know, me having done the ayahuasca and winter solstice and all these powerful things. She goes, I can't even do the ayahuasca because I already know he can't handle it. And she said it's kind of like, and I don't remember what it was referring to, but it's like in a bathtub of water when you put, let's say you put a separator and the water on this side is up high and the other side is like this. You take that separator out and it's like the man's over here and the woman's up here and that water just hits them and they don't know what it's like, right? And I'm like, yeah. Of course, it's a little different scenario. It's not, there's this whole idea that a man is supposed to be the protector, take care of the woman, and that it's crazy that a woman should have so much power, because we do. So there's this jealousy, envy going on. There's also this fear of being left behind. So you got to remember, in a humble way, men don't want to be left behind. They feel like they're supposed to be leading to begin with. So, you know, there's this imbalance where they want to be with us, they want to catch up to us, but yet they feel like, hey, wait for me, what about me? So when we evolve women, we also have to recognize integrating it, grounding it, supporting it, having your network of women to turn to. Men want to also want to feel included. And when we're doing work that they're not already doing, and part of it is that, yeah, If they don't feel included, it'd be nice if they would try to include themselves and get in on the boat instead of hanging off on the sides and getting all upset when they don't understand why. I mean, yeah, that's the bottom line. It's like we could point fingers and say, don't go off on me, don't flip out on me. Why don't you jump on the wagon and just get on board and quit on bitching, right? But you can't force them, and you gotta let them decide, right? And sometimes I'm loving Emily's quote here, what she wrote. She's, my husband has been into my lifestyle change, but he isn't as into it, so it makes me mad sometimes when he isn't with me. And I can totally relate, because it happens. And they don't realize they're flipping out. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the evolution and the upgrades and the energies and the shifts and the changes that you're making. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it's almost like you need a spiritual counselor. And I'm not talking about going to a therapist or anything like that, but somebody to at least translate and say, okay, those feelings you're feeling? Those are real. Like, really, feel them. Shit's being brought to surface for you to confront. In you and your partner. And if you're going to keep on fighting them, it's going to be hard. Because what you resist persists. And if you're unwilling to confront them, and they keep coming up, and the pattern keeps on getting stronger, but it doesn't seem to go away, well, wouldn't you think, stop doing the same thing over and over again? Because that's the definition of crazy. If you keep on pushing it away, pushing it down, stuffing it up, whatever, then you're just going to keep on. And, misery, company, and the fact that suffering is your choice. And that's all of us. I mean, seriously. Hi, Sharon. How are you, honey? Oh my gosh. I love that. You went to therapy. That's beautiful. We want our men on board, but we can't force them. And you got to find some common ground. Even it means that they go find a men's circle or something. Men need mentors too. And it's highly, highly recommended that they pick somebody who's higher on the vibrational scale than themselves and not somebody lower, because this is the evolution. We can't get to here if we're hanging out down here. And so I do believe in community, because you got different types of people coming in with different gifts to share. And the beauty is you all help buoy each other. Men and women, women and men, men and men, women and women. You got to just choose what works for you. But it's all a choice. And so, anyway, I am so grateful and appreciative of you all. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Barbie. But I say a prayer. I hope that my old Tom is doing well, and that the confession tonight releases whatever it is I need to let go of, because the memory came up for a reason. And I'm not that person anymore. That was my traumatized younger self of the fear of abandonment, the need for attention, because that was my thing back then. Is I would seek out attention, affection, and a lot of times it was physical. It was, whether it was dancing or kissing or touching and being held. I had some great experiences with it, and I had some not so great experiences. I've had a lot of good love in my life, but I've had a lot of pain too. And, real quick, when that one ex-boyfriend said, oh, Lana, when I asked, where's this headed? And he proceeded to shut me down and all that. So at that time we were here in Florida, and I was working in Slovakia, and that he was going back somewhere else where he was working at the time. We were both government contractors. And I said, okay, so I guess I'll talk to you when you get back to such and such. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll get in touch with you. Well, the irony is he was never one to not contact me, and he dropped off the face of the earth. And I fought for 1 year First off, I journaled. That was very cathartic. I literally journaled how I felt. I was so pissed off about the rejection. That was the way I handled it. Once again, though, I ran off and ended up having some, crazy experiences. But I journaled to the point where I could see while I was journaling, why the heck am I getting upset with this person? When the reality is, this isn't even about me. I did, whatever. Anyway, a year later, somehow we ended up back in touch. No, it was a little over a year because I was dating an Italian guy at the time. But it's just crazy how, you can't force anything when it's not meant to be. So, I love you all. Hi, beautiful Blanca Lilia. I love it. I love the names. Hi, Katrina. How are you? Hi, Julie Neal. So, I was going to post on my page, my personal page, I was going to put, ti amo, ti sento, ti voglio, ti amo. I see you. I feel you. I want you. I love you. And, we all just want to be loved. And I think the most important thing is never give up on standing in your personal power, at least speaking up when you feel something. Don't shut it down because, not all of us are aware, but, sometimes people can't handle your feelings because they weren't allowed to feel at home. My mom's family, when she was growing up, you didn't talk at the dinner table like I was talking about earlier, actually. And maybe you weren't allowed to show your feelings. So as a result, as an adult, you don't feel comfortable showing your feelings. You don't express your feelings. And when someone else expresses their feelings around you, it makes you uncomfortable. So as a result, you get uncomfortable and maybe you get upset with the other person because you don't know how to handle their feelings, because you don't know how to express your own feelings, let alone handle someone else's feelings. And so it's a crazy dynamic. And a lot of us will get in relationships where our partner can't handle our feelings and we don't understand why. Well, the reality is that person never wasn't allowed to express themselves, number one, has learned to suffocate and suppress their own emotions and feelings so that when they do have feelings that are really strong, they usually go exploding and everything is a fallout. So that when they have an encounter with your feelings, all of a sudden now they don't feel comfortable and they maybe make you feel bad about feeling. So then your feelings are rejected. And on top of it, now you're being told you shouldn't feel them. And you're being double rejected and felt bad, made to feel bad about feeling your feelings and telling them about it. So this whole crazy dynamic is just the result of, unhealthy childhoods and not being able to express ourselves. So let Valentine's Day be your opportunity to express yourself with yourself, for yourself. It's a crazy thing, but it comes from unhealthy relationships growing up in families. And that's my confession and share for tonight, and I will close this time now. I love you all. Sweet dreams. Good night.